Welcome to the deep dive. We sift through the sources so you get the crucial insights. Today, we're looking at something fundamental, education as the key. The path to a better future, upward mobility.
That's the idea, isn't it?
But is it still that clear cut, especially now in the U.S. economy? Is that path really as open as we think?
Well, that's exactly what we're digging into. We're focusing on a very specific transition, moving from the low-wage sector to what we call the full-time equivalent, or FTE sector,
FTE, got it.
and the role education plays in that. It's critical, yes, but it's also become, frankly, much, much harder.
So we're diving into excerpts from Temin Chap 4, The Transition. It lays out some pretty complex barriers.
It really does.
Our mission here is to unpack why it's gotten so tough. What are the systemic things going on? We want to give you a clearer picture, maybe some surprising angles. Let's dig in.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's start with that basic hope. People in the low-wage sector, they aspire to move up into the FTE world. And education, that's always been held up as the way, the main vehicle.
Yeah.
But maybe before we jump in, just so we're clear, what exactly defines this low-wage sector?
That's a good point. We're talking hourly pay, often part-time, maybe unpredictable schedules.
Right.
Limited benefits, very little chance to advance unless you get something external, like more education. Basically, just getting by is the main challenge.
Okay. So how does trying to use education to get out of that compare to, say, older economic shifts?
Well, think about traditional dual economies. Moving from the country to the city, that was a step.
Yeah.
Finding a job there was uncertain, a gamble. But honestly, this education path today, it might actually be harder.
Harder than just picking up and moving. Why?
Because it takes sustained spending, money, time, over a really long period. Resources that people in the low-wage sector typically just don't have. Aptitude matters, sure, just like luck mattered finding that city job.
Right.
But even if you're brilliant, it doesn't guarantee you an FTE job today.
And the time scale you mentioned, it's huge. We're not talking about a quick course.
No, not at all. A student needs to start young, keep at it for, what, 16 years more just to get a college degree.
16 years. That's a massive commitment, especially with those limited resources you mentioned.
It's immense.
Yeah.
And other challenges pile on. Look at Black male children. If trends hold, 1 in 3 ends up incarcerated.
1 in 3, that's staggering.
Imagine trying to plan for 16 years of education with that looming. Now, not every family faces that directly, which helps some kids visualize a future.
Sure.
But by junior high, when Black male students often start falling behind academically, that awareness of the odds against him, as the source puts it, it hits motivation hard.
Yeah, I can see that. Makes it tough for parents to keep them focused on that distant goal.
Incredibly tough.
Okay, so even getting through high school is a battle. But what about those who make it to college? The hurdles don't just disappear then, do they?
Not at all. Many poor students get to college but drop out partway through. They never get that degree, that entry ticket.
So making it to college isn't enough.
Far from it. And the data shows a real class divide here.
That's so.
Only about 1/3 of students from the bottom income quarter actually graduate college.
1/3? Wow.
Compare that to the top quarter. 2/3 graduate.
That's a huge gap. Does ability factor in?
It does. Both ability and class matter. Interestingly, math tests suggest ability counts more at lower income levels.
Okay.
But get this. For students with low math scores, the rich kids were 4 times more likely to graduate than the poor kids.
4 times?
Yeah. The gap narrows if scores are higher. But even then, rich students are still twice as likely to graduate.
So even with high ability, wealth provides a major advantage in actually finishing college.
A significant buffer, absolutely.
Okay, let's follow this thread. Someone beats the odds, they get the degree. Cap and gown, handshake. Does that piece of paper automatically unlock the FTE door?
That's where it gets tricky again. Something called social capital plays a huge role.
Social capital, meaning connections, networks.
Exactly. Your networks, the relationships you have. White students often find jobs through, well, extensive networks. Relatives, college friends, friends of friends, making introductions, recommendations.
Right, the who you know factor?
Pretty much. But Black urban college graduates, they're often less likely to know lots of people already in the FTE sector. Their classmates might not be moving into those jobs either.
So their networks are different?
different and often less connected to those specific opportunities, so their job prospects can be lower or funnel them towards specific fields like education, social work, government.
Or businesses targeting African Americans specifically.
Right, rather than the broader range of FTE jobs.
This next bit is fascinating
Yeah.
and maybe a little uncomfortable. It suggests that many white people in the FTE sector don't even realize these network differences exist.
Yeah, the source uses this great analogy: fish do not know they're living in water.
Explain that.
People in the FTE sector often have very little direct contact with the low-wage sector. They're surrounded by this social capital, the networks, the shared assumptions, the ease of getting introductions, but it's just normal. It's the water they swim in.
So they don't see it as an advantage.
Often not. They might attribute their success purely to hard work, finding it hard to grasp that a poor student, even a bright one, doesn't have that same invisible support system.
That lack of awareness, that feels like a really crucial barrier to understanding mobility.
It's a massive blind spot.
Okay, so we have individual challenges, network challenges. But there are bigger systemic things shifting too, right? Especially around the cost of education itself. Public universities, you mentioned, are facing funding issues.
Huge issues. The source calls it a starvation diet.
Starvation diet, that sounds dramatic.
The numbers back it up. State funding for higher ed, in real dollars, dropped 40% since 1980.
40%.
And for the top 100 public research universities, state funding went from 38% of their budgets in 92 down to just 23% by 2010.
Wow, so states are pulling back significantly.
Massively. Overall, state and local spending on higher ed, it was 60% of the total back in 1975. By 2010, only 35%.
That's a fundamental shift in public commitment.
Absolutely. It's redefining who pays.
So the unavoidable question, when states cut funding that drastically, what's the direct hit on students?
Tuition, it skyrockets.
Makes sense. They have to get the money somewhere.
Exactly. Inflation-adjusted tuition and fees, they jumped 250% at flagship state universities between 1980 and 2012.
250%.
It was 230% for all state schools, even 165% at community colleges. This isn't just making it harder, it's creating a huge financial wall.
A wall right in the path that's supposed to lead out of the low-wage sector.
Precisely. It prices out so many people who need that path the most.
Now, traditionally, how did families handle college costs? Didn't parents often cover it, or property taxes help fund the system?
That was largely the model, yes. Either direct payment or indirectly through taxes supporting public institutions.
But that system is broken.
Essentially, yes. The dual economy model means low-wage workers just can't afford today's costs.
Yeah.
And the FTE sector, the source puts it bluntly, they're unwilling to help them.
Unwilling, so that link is gone?
That crucial transfer of resources between sectors and even between generations, it's missing. It's a major gap.
And this breakdown, this gap, this seems like the fertile ground where the student loan crisis really took root.
It absolutely is. It's a huge driver.
And the crisis isn't just the amount of debt, is it? It changed how education gets funded and even delivered.
Exactly. The federal government shifted towards helping individuals directly, Pell Grants, GI Bill money, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Which sounds good, but it inadvertently swung the doors wide open for private, for-profit schools.
Ah, like the University of Phoenix you mentioned earlier.
Yes. They got accredited back in '72 to receive that federal student aid. But their focus often wasn't on, say, long-term student success or preserving knowledge.
What was it then?
Well, often it was about boosting enrollment numbers quickly to drive up stock prices.
Oh.
So while they could be very profitable, they frequently didn't provide the kind of education needed to actually get students into the FTE sector.
And the impact of these for-profits, it hits certain groups harder, doesn't it?
Disproportionately hard, yes. For-profits enroll only about, 12% of all college students?
Okay, 12%. Seems small.
But they account for almost half of all student loan defaults.
Half from just 12% of students.
Yep. And regulating them has been a nightmare. The government's caught in the middle.
How so?
You've got the industry claiming they're being unfairly targeted and critics demanding way more action against, fraud and abuse. It's a real mess.
And the outcome for students caught in this?
Often devastating. Stuck back in the low-wage sector, saddled with huge debt, but without the degree or skills that were promised.
Which raises a terrifying question. What kind of trap is this debt? How inescapable is it?
It's an incredibly tough trap. Let's talk bankruptcy. You'd think that would be an option, right?
For most debts, yeah.
But for student loans, you have to prove undue hardship.
Undue hardship. What does that even mean legally?
Well, that's the problem.
Yeah.
The law doesn't define it. So courts often use this old test, the Brunner test from '87.
Okay, the Brunner test. What does it require?
It's brutal. You have to show you're currently living in poverty, you've made a good faith effort to repay, and that there's basically no hope your situation will ever improve.
Hopelessness. You have to prove hopelessness.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
It creates this awful double bind. If you're actually trying to get ahead, trying to make that transition to the FTE sector, the loans hold you back. But you can only get them discharged if you basically give up on that ambition and prove you have no future prospects.
That seems designed to keep people down.
It really does. The source even points out a case in New Jersey where apparently even death might not cancel the debt.
Unbelievable. This whole picture, the costs, the debt, the lack of escape, it doesn't sound like bad luck. It sounds like policy, like a system.
The source calls it a web of policies,
Hmm.
and it absolutely wasn't inevitable.
Oh,
Yeah. Think back to economist W. Arthur Lewis. Over 50 years ago, he argued the capitalist sector benefits from keeping wages low in the subsistence sector.
okay. How does that connect?
Well, look at the policies that emerged. New federalism under Nixon and Reagan cut federal aid to states.
Which cut university funding, as you said.
Right. Forcing students to borrow more. Then you get deregulation and privatization in the financial sector.
Letting student loans explode without checks.
Exactly. Loan servicers running rampant. Then they made the loans nearly impossible to discharge in bankruptcy.
Locking people in.
And privatization opened the floodgates for those for-profit colleges, funded by government loans, often without delivering results.
And they lobbied to keep it that way.
They advertise heavily, lobby hard. It's not just one policy, you see. It's how they all weave together.
A web designed, intentionally or not, to make that transition incredibly difficult.
It restricts mobility and keeps the low-wage sector supplied, arguably.
So zooming out from the individual stories, what's the impact of all this web on the whole economy?
It's massive. You got over 40 million Americans
40 million people.
owing more than $1.2 trillion in student debt. Trillion.
That number is hard to even comprehend.
It's the second biggest type of consumer debt now, right after mortgages.
Wow. And what does that do to the economy?
It acts like a giant brake. People burned with that debt can't spend as much on other things: cars, houses, goods, services.
So it dampens demand.
Exactly. Which reduces the need for labor, especially in the low-wage sector, helping keep those wages stagnant.
So the debt itself helps perpetuate the low-wage trap.
It's a vicious cycle, making the transition even harder.
This leads us to something called the Great Gatsby curve. I've heard the term, but what does it actually show?
It shows a relationship, an inverse one, between how unequal a society is and how much income mobility it has.
Okay, so more inequality means less mobility.
Precisely. The taller the economic ladder, the harder it is for someone on a lower run to climb up. High inequality, low mobility.
And the difficulty of getting through the education system we've been discussing.
Is a key mechanism behind that curve in the U.S. It's one big reason why climbing that ladder is so hard here.
The source gives an example, right? That teacher.
Yeah, John David Bowman. A good teacher, has degrees, but he's stuck in the low-wage sector. Why? Because there isn't enough FTE-level support or investment in public education to lift his career path.
It really highlights the systemic failure. But this isn't how it has to be, right? Other countries manage this differently.
Absolutely. This specific student debt crisis is largely a U.S. phenomenon. Other countries don't have it on this scale.
Then what do?
Well, even if students need to borrow, the loans can be structured completely differently. Think about it. Education builds human capital for your whole life.
Right, like buying a house, not a car that depreciates.
Exactly. So why not finance it more like a mortgage, repay over 30 years? That drastically lowers the monthly payments.
That makes sense.
Or repayment could be tied to your actual earnings. You don't start paying until you hit a certain income threshold, maybe near FTE entry level. And even then, you only pay a small percentage of your income above that level. Makes it manageable, not crushing.
Those sound like practical solutions that treat education as the long-term investment it is.
They treat it as a public good, yes.
Okay, all this data, these policies, it's a lot. Let's make it really human. The source tells the story of Liz Kelly, an unlucky borrower.
Her story is, well, it's tough to hear, but it shows exactly how these systems impact real lives.
Tell us about her.
She was a non-traditional student, married, had kids, trying to make that transition, graduated college in '94, English degree, That was around $42,000 in today's money.
Okay, substantial, but maybe manageable back then.
Maybe. But she couldn't find a job to make the leap. So she tried law school, added another $37,000 in debt in just 3 semesters.
Then what happened?
She got really sick, had to drop out of law school, decided to pursue teaching instead. But that meant...
Or schooling, more debt.
Exactly. So from 99 to 2004, she's in grad school. Her loans are deferred, but the interest, it's ticking up at 8.25%.
Ouch. Deferred interest is brutal.
It added $60,000 just in interest while she was in school. Her total debt hit almost $200,000.
$200,000 just trying to become a teacher.
And it didn't stop there. The story gets worse.
Oh, no.
2008 crash hits. Her husband loses his job. They lose their house. They get divorced.
Just one blow after another.
She consolidated her loans, trying to manage, but the interest rate was still 7%. Her total debt grew to $260,000.
Still climbing.
And later, it ballooned over $400,000. She started facing wage garnishment, even threats to garnish her Social Security down the line.
$400,000.
Now, at 48, she's legally obligated to pay $2,750 every month for the next 30 years, and bankruptcy is not an option for her.
That's a life sentence of debt. It's crushing. Yet the source quotes her saying, "I'm not a victim. I made choices."
And she did make choices. But her story is such a powerful illustration of just how incredibly difficult, how punishing the system is for someone trying to do the right thing, get educated, move from low wage to FTE work.
Especially when the old supports like low tuition or family help just aren't there anymore.
Precisely. Her choices were made within a system that actively worked against her, offered no safety net, and piled on obstacle after obstacle.
So we've covered a lot of ground today. I think the core takeaway, for me at least, is crystal clear. Making that transition, using education, it's not just about how hard you work.
Not even close.
It's this incredibly complex tangle of systemic barriers. Funding cuts, that social capital piece, the crushing student loan crisis.
And that whole web of policies we discussed, they all interlock.
Making a path that was already challenging now seem almost impossible for many. It really does feel like a two-tiered system.
Yeah, and the implications go way beyond individuals like Liz Kelly or John David Bowman, as tough as their situations are.
Right. It affects everyone.
It impacts overall economic mobility, the fairness of our society, how we even think about opportunity and potential. It forces us to ask, how do we actually value and decide to fund human potential?
What really stands out to you from this deep dive? For me, it's seeing how that path, that promise of education we all believed in, has become so blocked, so treacherous because of deliberate systemic choices.
Yeah, the systemic nature is key.
So here's a final thought for you to chew on. If we agree that education builds human capital, something valuable that lasts a lifetime, what kind of future are we really building when access to that capital is so expensive, so debt-ridden, so uncertain for so many? What might it look like if our society decided to truly invest in that human capital, maybe as much as we invest in physical things like buildings or infrastructure? What if we made accessing the FTE sector genuinely equitable? Lots to think about. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.